Kingsley Preparatory Academy was not the kind of school that offered second chances, or kindness to those who didn't wear pressed blazers and family crests. Towering oak doors, marble floors polished to a mirror's gleam, and a faculty roster filled with Ivy League alumni gave the place its legendary status. It was, to many, an academic utopia, a place where the children of politicians, tycoons, and celebrities learned in classrooms that could rival museums. But even in this picture-perfect place of prestige, there were corners untouched by glamour. That's where Daniel Reyes worked. Each morning before sunrise and again after the final bell rang, Daniel moved silently through the grand halls with a mop, bucket, and a key ring that clinked with each step. He had been at Kingsley for 3 years, ever since life had come crashing down around him. Once celebrated in the world of classical music as a prodigious cellist, Daniel had given it all up the moment he became a father and a widower in the same breath. Emily, his wife, had died during childbirth, and in her place, Sofia came into the world with wide eyes and a soft cry. From that moment, music became a memory, and diapers, lullabies, and late-night feedings became his new symphony. Kingsley hadn't hired Daniel for his resume. The head custodian, Mr. Abbott, had seen him sitting outside the building with a "will work for my daughter" cardboard sign, Sofia asleep in his lap. Abbott had seen hundreds of people asking for help. Something about Daniel, his silence, his pride, the cello case beside him even though it hadn't been opened in years, had struck a chord. He'd offered him a job on the spot. Now, 3 years later, Daniel was part of the school's undercurrent. He knew which lockers squeaked, which faucets leaked, and which students left their messes without a second thought. His uniform was always clean, his demeanor polite, and his eyes quietly observant. Most of the students didn't know his name. He was just janitor guy, invisible in the world of privilege. Sofia, now 10, sometimes tagged along during his evening shifts. She would sit in the music room and do her homework while he swept the adjacent hallway. A few teachers had grown fond of her and occasionally brought her snacks or let her read in the library. She was bright, curious, and always asking about the cello in the corner of their small apartment. She had never heard him play. "Why don't you play anymore, Papa?" she asked one night as she lay on her mattress, surrounded by second-hand stuffed animals. Daniel's voice had cracked when he replied, "Because the music left when your mom did." But the truth was more complicated. The pain of loss, the struggle to provide, and the exhaustion of juggling jobs had left no space for art. The cello had become a relic of his former life, collecting dust and regrets in equal measure. Everything changed one Thursday afternoon. It started, as many cruel things do, with a joke. Mr. Kensington, the director of the school's music program, was hosting auditions for the annual Spring Gala, a night where students performed before an audience of parents, donors, and occasionally, billionaires who liked to sponsor the arts with extravagant donations. One of the students, Bryce Melton, heir to a tech fortune and infamous for his entitled pranks, overheard Daniel telling Sofia about Bach while she waited outside the music room. Bryce smirked and whispered something to his friends. The next day, during auditions, he raised his hand. "Mr. Kensington, why don't we invite the janitor to play?" he said with mock seriousness. "I heard he's, like, a cello prodigy or something. Let's see some magic from the mop maestro." The room laughed. Mr. Kensington frowned. But before he could shut it down, another voice spoke up, deep, calm, and unfamiliar. "I think that's a splendid idea." Heads turned to see an older man at the back of the room, Leonard Holt, billionaire investor and longtime patron of Kingsley Prep, who had unexpectedly dropped in to observe the auditions. Rumor had it he was deciding which arts program to fund this year. With a dry smile, he added, "Let's see what the janitor's made of." Daniel, who had been mopping the hallway just outside the music room, heard the commotion. Mr. Kensington called him in awkwardly. "Daniel, would you mind playing something?" the teacher asked, clearly uncomfortable. Daniel looked past the sea of curious eyes and locked eyes with Sofia, who had peeked into the room. Her small hands clutched her worn notebook. Her eyes were wide, hopeful, even excited. His throat tightened. He could have said no. He could have walked away and kept his pride tucked away with his cello in that dusty case at home. But something about Sofia's expression, and the mocking laughter of the students, lit something in him. Something he hadn't felt in years. "I'd need a cello," he said quietly. Mr. Kensington blinked. You play cello?" Daniel gave a slight nod. The room was silent as the director gestured to the back wall where several instruments sat unused. One was an antique Montagnana replica, rarely touched by students. Daniel stepped forward, removed the cello from its stand, and adjusted the endpin with practiced grace. The room, filled with giggles and disbelief just seconds earlier, fell silent as he sat on the lone stool. He closed his eyes. The bow met string. What came next was not just music, it was emotion incarnate. Deep, trembling notes that vibrated through the floorboards and climbed into the marrow of every person present. He played Bach's Cello Suite No. 1 in G major, the prelude. Fluid, aching, timeless. His fingers moved with muscle memory shaped by thousands of hours in practice rooms, symphony halls, and lonely apartments. But this performance was different. This time, he played for Sofia. Every note was a letter he couldn't speak aloud. Every phrase told her how much he had lost, how much he loved her, how hard he had fought to keep their tiny world from falling apart. And as the final note faded, the room remained hushed, frozen in awe. Leonard Holt, who had not shed a tear in 30 years, not at his divorce, not even at his father's funeral, removed his glasses and wiped his eyes. Sofia clapped first. A slow, proud, childlike clap that echoed louder than applause ever could. Others followed, tentatively, then all at once. Even Bryce, who had started the joke, sat slack-jawed and silent. Leonard Holt approached him afterward. "Daniel, is it?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I haven't heard Bach played like that since Yo-Yo Ma." "You trained?" "Juilliard," Daniel said softly. "But that was a long time ago." The billionaire studied him for a moment, then turned to Sofia. "Your father's very talented." "I know," she beamed. Later that night, Sofia clung to him as they walked to their tiny apartment. "Papa, why didn't you tell me you could make music like that?" He looked at her and whispered, "I forgot I could. But today, you reminded me." By Monday, everything had changed. A formal invitation was delivered to Daniel's locker. Mr. Holt had requested he perform at the spring gala. Not just as a guest, but as the headline act. The music department, stunned by the billionaire's praise, rushed to prepare the stage. Even Mr. Kensington started treating Daniel differently. And the students? They began looking at him with something new in their eyes, respect, even admiration. They greeted him by name. Some even asked for music tips. Bryce never joked again. Daniel had once believed his best years had ended the day Emily died. But the music, like his love for Sofia, had only been waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting to come alive again. And in a marble-floored music room, surrounded by privilege and pride, a single dad with calloused hands and a heavy heart reminded everyone that greatness doesn't always wear a blazer or come with a trust fund. Sometimes, it wears a janitor's uniform and carries forgotten strings.